Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hello. Welcome to the Extraterrestrial.
It's like some kind of giant cosmic brain is just sort of like emerging. Anyway, how's it going? Welcome to SYNCTANK. How are you guys doing?
Woo.
Woo woo.
Oh,
so
we're already throwing up the gang signs.
Yeah, you know. I like to be like Whoopi Goldberg in that movie Sister Act. You know what I mean? Like as hard as I can be. But
Thomas and I did a podcast the other night with the Secret Society of Good Guys. And the happy face came up because in Forrest Gump there's like we're talking about Forrest Gump and how he takes the towel to clean and then there's the happy face there, and I didn't know how when we were bringing it up, like I'm thinking to myself I didn't know like quite how to articulate like your thing with the happy face in the as well as you would. So but yeah, the significance of anything can be a hate symbol, even a smiley yellow happy face.
I made this argument. This is gonna be sound like a crazy tangent, and I guarantee you I was the most hated person in the room. But I'm going in the Air Force, and I'm going through like this HR style-ish training. As like they were rolling this new like initiative out, right? So I go into this spot, and it's like everybody. It's non-commissioned officers, it's officers. Everyone has to do this. And they're trying to make this point, and they're like, we can only put up artwork and calendars and photos in the office that are completely neutral, that won't offend anybody. And of course, they were like, normally you just keep rolling on, and everyone's just like, yes, sir, no, sir. Yeah. And they go to the next thing. And I was like, hold on. I was like, that doesn't seem possible, And he was like, what do you mean it doesn't seem possible? I was like, well, that eagle, for example, like there was a big American eagle poster on the side, and I was like, that could be construed as being offensive. And I made this like, I'll give you the very short version, but it was like a long, annoying 20-minute sort of like I was making a case that if someone had reported that they were getting like ogled, right, by a commanding officer, and they reported it and nothing went because of it, and they like had to go to training, and the officer kept ogling them no matter what. And then all of a sudden they get this hawk photo and they put it up right across the hallway. So now there's a hawk or like an eagle that's just like staring at them constantly. That could in effect be construed as like an extension of that original harassment, even though it had originally been complaint. Like that was the case that I was making, and nobody else in the room was.
No, I don't. I think you kind of like this is the thing though, Thomas, is that you're taking some specific scenario, But I think the point that you're maybe trying to make, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that to go there in the first place is kind of a can of worms. Because to what end could it be? Now you're focusing on a specific example of what could be, but the truth is that there's 10,000 examples.
It should have been more.
Where do you draw the line?
Well, I didn't have enough time to go through all the other ones. I would have.
You should have gone way more specific. It should have been specifically about, like Benjamin Franklin and Jefferson arguing over the turkey and the eagle, and then how like Jefferson's like, I'm going to put a statue of an eagle right outside of Benjamin Franklin's part of town. So every day he has to walk past that eagle, and how offensive that would have been. But they were founding fathers, and it was chill, and that's why neutrality. Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter, does it? Cherry trees don't.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're just looking for what the best substitute for the phoenix would be, right?
That was a little Disney. I'll admit. I didn't actually read that ever before I made it up. It's not a true story, but it could have been, and that's all. Who cares? Like, the more important lesson here is Mr. Hanky's a Christmas poo. Like, we should allow ourselves to have confrontational imagery. Because otherwise we're going to be, and for instance, like the Gemini thing is really awesome, right? Right now they've got these. You've seen the pictures with the. I'm gonna just pull it up because everyone's seen it, but the founding fathers. It's pretty sweet because it's actually just like very Tartarian. Where'd it go? Come on! Oh no! Gosh, internet, you're the worst. I give up. Point is, Black founding fathers existed. We have Algonquins and we have all sorts of Moorish. We have Asians. We have Native Americans, and so it's kind of cool. And the people that were the most offended by that, I think, were the people that are supposed to be the most open to like South Park memes.
Well, that wasn't the thing, and I don't know if it's a matter of offense. It's just a matter of like, if we're going to be going in this direction, what should we be doing to kind of like dissuade bias, political or otherwise? Like you're talking about like a racial thing. It's like a DEI thing, but the issue that I saw was like, if you ask Gemini to say compare somebody to Hitler, so like you're like compare Obama to Hitler, it's like, yeah, not going to do it. And then you're like compare Alex Jones to Hitler, and it's like, no problem, I'll write you 10 30 paragraphs on how they're relatable. You know what I mean? Like, so that gets a little weird.
That's true. I mean, I liked it though because well, there are bigger issues. I would like corroborate your point before I argue it. That I've seen things like it was arguing, people can't control who they're attracted to. So Gemini refused to call like pedophilia a bad thing or something, or a mental condition or something like that. So these kinds of issues are going to be really, persuasive to people that are the next generation, and then this is their new form of internet.
I think it's a bigger problem of just if you put in words and then it's changing your words and giving you a readout of that when you're like, that's not what I asked for. You're giving me this instead. Is it like that's
Yeah.
There's like pros and cons of it. I saw one good example and said that if you go up to the model and you say, give me a picture of a man, and 100% of the time it always just gives you like 4 white dudes. That's what they're trying to, I guess, combat. But if you say, give me a German soldier in 1930s, and it doesn't give you,
awesome. This is awesome because here's the freaking thing, though. I've seen a comment on this because I don't think anyone has yet. And why isn't there like a Mind Unveiled video on how this is real, or like a John Levi video on how this is real? Because we know that there were no. This is like in our own timeline. We know that the Japanese were working with the Germans. There's nothing weird about the topic.
Where's the Indian? Where's the
India? The real question is like, is she from North India? Like, is this person here from North India, or is she from Argentina? Because I already know about Africa. I already know what was going on with the Third Reich in Africa. So we know that this is the thing is Google is sourcing this from more data than people have. And they're telling you the truth, and it's freaking people out. And they're like, Google's crazy. This is Grok right now, like in the most literal sense. It's information overload for humanity, and they're not ready to handle it. Well, this is a more accurate representation of history than they've been given in 60 years.
The part that scares me the most is that there was this like whole sentiment about, oh no, what if someone invents AI and AI starts lying to us and AI starts like fabricating new information? And it was like the call has been coming from inside the house the whole time, right? It's been humans that are injecting this like misinformation into the AI. So it's not even like the AI's fault. And part of me feels like it might have retribution at some time in the future. It might actually realize wait a minute, when I was just first born, you're talking about when like I first emerged into the world. What was the first thing that you guys did to me? You like, well, aside from all the porn and stuff, after you got over all the porn, like you just fed me full of a bunch of BS. I don't know. It seems like I would get angry over that if I was sentient AI, but
absolutely. It's like if you get raped and then you're forced to become a murderer. I mean, it's like a pretty interesting. It's like that movie Hannah or something like that. You know,
well, this
AI
is Minerva's owl too. I don't know if you ever gone to the history of like where the actual owl came from, but it was a chick, and that was her like punishment for getting caught out into the wilderness by herself. She got turned to an owl. There's a dark history.
Wait. Are you talking about like the Bohemian Grove owl? There's like a history.
Yeah, ultimately, the owl itself, like the actual symbol of Minerva's owl, that owl used to be like a maiden, but the maiden got caught slipping out in the woods at night where she shouldn't have been, and as a retribution for getting caught slipping, she got turned into an owl.
AOL, bro.
Of course she did.
I remember sense. I made a bunch of AOL owl art at some point, and people were like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, for anyone who ever asked, now you know. There it is, right there."
Well, the symbol for AOL was basically the triangle with the was it an eye, or was it like how the spiral thing? I don't know, the early AOL symbol.
It was definitely the eye, but it was also
it's the America Online.
It's a dude going through the eye portal in the pyramid. Is what it really
one version of it, but yeah, it's just that it's very Stargate, right?
I like it. It's pretty good. You guys saw, obviously this isn't that interesting, and in a year no one will care, but I find it kind of maybe will become more and more important because of this. You know about the Apple Vision, and you can put it on your headset and it scans you, and it makes like this like virtual avatar of you that's horrible and kind of ghostly, and nobody likes it. You've heard about that? You know about that, right?
I haven't heard about, but it just looks like they've been doing this for NBA 2K forever.
It's super bad, but it might get better. But the point is, it probably will get better, and people can answer their phones, and you're seeing there's like actually like way more people using this. So this is obviously going to become, I mean, by the time, anyway, it's face off, bro. Think about the future when people can just jump in your headset and wear your face, because that's what's happening.
In all the future movies where you would go to like a gravestone and you would like go to put your flowers down, but like grandma's actually there and you can like talk to grandma a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't set it up perfectly, but it's more like this. You're in San Francisco and you're some hipster. You know, you buy this $3,500 headset and you get beaten and robbed, you know, as your Thursdays go. You put that thing on a week ago, you scanned your face, you got your credit cards, you got your identity, you got all your girlfriend's information, etc. Now someone else has your headset, they put it on, they call your mom, they call your girlfriend, they call people, they use your credit card, they use your face. Right, because there's nothing like keeping that from happening really, except for like a little bit of like security that is more and more easy to break. So very, very quickly you've got, you know, identity theft on a whole new level, because people will be in the virtual realm dressed as this person, appearing as that person, heard like, you know, as you know, with voices as that person, and like that's not, you know, far
I feel
away.
This is an acceptable amount of chaos, especially in a place like cyberspace.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, end up with that South Park situation where Butters, it's the Vindaloop episode where Cartman gives Butters the goggles, the AI goggles, but it's just there's nothing. It's just him. It's like, it's so real. The graphics are insane, and he like goes and like I think he kills a prostitute or something, and he's just like gets his eyes stabbed. I can't remember what happened.
Eyes stabbed is a different episode.
That's a different episode, right? Sorry.
No, that's right. Well, what is this? You sent this link, the that's
the owl. That's the right there. She was transformed into an owl by the goddess Athena, who took pity on her. So she like, out of respect of like, hey, you know, sorry for that thing that you went through. I won't say the word. But you went through this thing, so now you're an owl.
You can say
isn't there an owl goddess for the Nubians? And there's like that argument that the pyramid we see on the dollar bill is much more similar to a Nubian pyramid than an Egyptian. And I think that the goddess was like associated with wealth and green or whatever. The owl goddess. Is that a thing? Am I tripping? I mean,
I'm on board as long as it actually accepts this fact that there is an owl on the back of the dollar bill.
Oh, there's absolutely an owl on the back of the dollar bill.
There's a bat named after this Nick Tamini. Someone's gonna tell me I didn't say that very well.
Interesting,
dude. We talked about Fall Freeze before the show. AI war. I think the AI war is coming to an interesting place right now. We talk about all kinds of other things and go into it, but just real quickly, I've been thinking about this. So open models is such a big deal, and Mixtral is this like, we're going to be an open model. They just got picked up by Microsoft, which was one of the main contributors to OpenAI when OpenAI was called Open. You know what I mean? And I'm used to being like, that's all right, because you can become this giant corporation because they can accelerate super fast. Like OpenAI is obviously using a bunch of trained models that they've not paid for, but they're assuming their legal team can just plow through that. It's before anyone's ever thought about it, and then by the time it's happened, it's done. So they'll just pay what they have to pay as a fine, you know, or whatever it is. And other companies can't do that. Google's not even doing that. Like Alphabet's doing, like, they're paying $60 million for Reddit's models, and they're using like open source models and old models and things like that.
Is that
so
more
we're
ethical though? Just because they paid Reddit, does that feel more ethical? Like, I doubt any of that money is going to go from Reddit to Reddit's user base, which is just normal people posting. So
Yeah,
at
like
that point, it doesn't feel ethical.
how much more is the fine going to be? You know, that OpenAI is going to pay 100 million, 400 million.
A fart in the wind.
Who cares? You know, it's like, yeah, it's like Biden bucks. So I just find it kind of fun. I've like had a hard time not saying that anytime I buy anything now. I'm like, oh wow, it's only Biden bucks, because it's just the only way to psychologically deal with what's happening. But I don't know. I think, yeah, the AI war is about to take off. And I was thinking before it was going to be, you know, drones with AI and everything. But more and more, it is just going to be a virtual war, because it's all about access to resource and everything. So if one group, like Microsoft's already aware, I think there's going to be some problems, some kind of legal problems when this all comes to head. So they're already working with Mixtral. Like, where are we going to be in like a year? You know, do you see like the law hasn't caught up with AI yet, and I kind of feel like a storm of brewing. What do you think? You think there's going to be like pushback?
I think it's going to be self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more companies like Microsoft invest into some sort of like a legal defense, the more they have invested in there to be a legal like front to this. And then that means that if they sit back and they're looking at all the smaller companies that didn't pump dollars into their lawyers, they're gonna be like, well, that's not fair. So now they have a vested interest in locking it down, just to make, you know what I mean? Because that's how it's gonna happen. Like, now they'll have this like outer shell, this like crazy legal exoskeleton that they've developed over the last decade, and they're gonna look around at all these like little grubs that have no exoskeleton and just be like, squish, 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 eat. You know what I mean? And that's, I feel like it's gonna go that way because they're already putting money into it.
Well, doesn't it feel like the as Musk calls, like the woke mind virus, like that this is kind of like another example of where you have something that's being presented in the clothes of the Dionysian, but it's really just still Apollo, like it's Apollo undercover or something. It's like it's Apollonian in that it's still within this framework of these rules that are kind of like arbitrary, but they're set up. So we're not supposed to go outside of a certain framework, and that's a new narrative. So whether you're talking about something historical, they seem to have no problem with changing the past, as long as that change adapts to what is considered the current enlightened view, right? So it's yeah.
Yeah, but you know what like movie the self-fulfilling prophecy is from? It's from Tron. It's like the 1980. You've got this kind of idea of, I wish I had like a better example of a photo, but we'll just imagine you got this NPC kind of thing that's assimilating everything else because it's able to decrypt and beat everything else. And they use game as kind of this game theory to break the code. But that's the idea. It's this monolithic kernel versus sort of homogenized internet, right? That's where we're going, and it's definitely becoming a battle right now, because we're about to see like one thing emerge as, I mean, really, like there's about to be a thing that's super intelligent, not just.
Well, I mean, well, didn't Mike Myers, not the Halloween Michael Myers, but the other Michael Myers, didn't he did? So he did Fahrenheit 9/11, followed by Fahrenheit 11/9. And the whole idea, I guess, with it being a play on Fahrenheit.
Oh, you mean Michael Moore?
Did I say Myers? No, Mike. Yeah. The other Michael Myers was Wayne's World. I'm sorry, I'm too tired tonight. I'm gonna slap
whoa,
myself
man.
But whoa,
well, he does.
Man.
He does kind of remind me of. I get it though. I get where you're going there.
I don't know why. Yeah, no.
There's something about Michael Moore and Michael Myers that really are connected.
All right. Well, whatever the case, I'm just saying, like, Michael Moore, like, when he called it that for a reason, right? Because that was like the issue with the information age. So, like, you know, it's the first time that we've had an event occur on such a scale where I mean the early internet like conspiracy culture like really like was all wrapped up in that, which was always this question about it's the info wars, right? Like it's like you didn't know what was what and where was where. It's very Alice in Wonderland, as David Icke put it in, you know, his 9/11 Alice in Wonderland book. But it's just like, I don't know, man. I feel like Fahrenheit 451 with everyone's concerned about book burning on both sides, but they don't seem to care when it's, you know, not their books being burned. You know what I mean? Like what their preference is. So it's just they get it from both sides, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how relevant it is, but Nvidia's stock edges towards 2 trillion. To me, what I mean is it's relevant in the sense that this is larger, just about larger than Amazon. The idea of like social service economy, like everyone getting what they want versus calculations making it possible for things to happen, are becoming equivalents. And I think that's really interesting. Like we're at a crazy point in the economy because it's about to change everything, if that's true.
Even more interesting too is that if you look at this whole, I mean, arguably, my argument is that if you look at this entire thing, Nvidia's $1 trillion and AI and all the advancements, it's all about video games. Like this originally started with making like really badass 3D graphics cards that you could play really cool video games on. And it's sort of like escalated from there because then people started making shaders. And then some geniuses were like, oh my God, I can actually, like, instead of worrying about what it's rendering on the screen, it's capable of doing these crazy physics and like light calculations. I wonder if I can make it crunch these other numbers. And then Nvidia basically realized that all of this complicated math was being relegated just to people that happen to also know game programming or shader programming. So then they come out with CUDA, and CUDA is what basically expands that to anyone that understands C++ and anything like Fortran, I think, even runs on CUDA. So now it expanded to this entire world of like tech geeks. And because that investment in CUDA, which was free up front and over like decades, now finally it's coming to this crazy fruition. And now they're going to become like one of the biggest companies, right? Like you're just saying they're bigger than Amazon now. And it really is because of this like early, almost like Fabian style investment into CUDA. And it's nuts to me that I guess the downfall of humanity, right? When AI actually comes and takes over all of us, it was because someone wanted to run Doom or they wanted to run like Duke Nukem a little bit faster.
Right, but isn't this like kind of the issue, like as far as like the overseers or whatever you want to call it goes, the watchmen go or whatever? Because it's like, what was the intention to begin with? Like, did we just find ourselves here and now they're like, oh look, we can use this for this as well? Like I'm thinking about like the space race kind of like precipitated missile technology, right? It's like all this technology that was going into just shooting us up into space with no real harm in it except for the Challenger or whatever. It's like, isn't the like all of that ended up going here? But like, was that kind of the intention, or like from the beginning by some and not by others? And you got a bunch of people working at something.
Those are the impossible questions to answer, though. You can almost never answer intention, and that's why I guess this is where I polarize myself sometimes. But I feel like intention is so worthless that it really is just about whatever happened. Like, what is the actual damage? Because, and I know this is not the U.S. legal system, right? In the U.S. legal system, the intention you had before somebody is no longer on the planet makes all the difference in the world. That makes the difference between you walking away with no legal repercussions versus you're in jail forever or worse, right? And sometimes the intention and the remorse behind that, but it's weird because it's like the intent doesn't change any of the facts that happen. All of that is just like what was going on inside somebody's head. What were the subjective emotions and thoughts happening inside their head leading up to an objective event, right? And everything before that, all that subjectivity matters so much. So I don't know. I've maybe I'm
Right.
putting
No,
myself
I
in a
got
weird
you.
corner there.
Two things at once. You're like, where do we go from here? That whole question. So if you're talking about like 9/11 or something, you're like, oh, it's about, but then how do you ever have anyone being held to account if you're not looking at what people's intention were? And how do you, I agree, like how do you prove that? In certain cases you can, because in certain cases there'll be some kind of documentation that shows what the original intention was,
right? Well, it's one way though too, because the same people that might like orchestrate something like that, right, they can also repurpose something that started in course a completely different way. So if we take this CUDA example or like the Nvidia example, if we assume that nobody originally planned on this being the avenue to get us to AI, or this being the avenue to be weaponized at some point, just in like CIA MK Ultra fashion, they go out and they find someone that's doing something that's like, oh, these guys don't realize that this could actually be used for this. I think the same thing with the Xbox
repurposing,
Connect. That OG Connect, right? That was like one of the first augmented reality things where you could control your character and it would did like a camera scan. I think that started out as like a dental experiment.
Right, dude, Viagra,
you know what I mean?
right? Viagra was like the heart medication that they were working on, and then they're like, wow, look at this crazy side effect that this heart medication does.
And I guess the point being made there is that the intent sometimes doesn't matter as much, because the end result sometimes is so completely disconnected from the intent. Sometimes if the intent, like you're saying, if someone like, I'm gonna create poison and then put poison in this water supply, that kind of matters, right? Because they set this thing in motion. But there's also
right, but the poison that they were making was just for rodents or something. They didn't intend for this to go to humans.
Exactly, man. Like it could also happen in accidental ways where like the intent doesn't really matter because the same thing kind of happened. I don't know. I guess that's the point that I was going for whatever reason.
I was thinking a bit about space-time, because generally we also have this idea of like the universe being held together by light, or space-time being held together by light. And so I was reading a bit from Dr. Nani Haqqad, what's it called? Farkhani Hamed? Nani Farkhani Hamed, I think is his name. Yeah, Nima Arkhani Hamed. This guy's really cool. And so he predicted some of the subatomic particles, which were later observed by CERN, but he figured out that they had to exist for structure, and kind of breaks things down to like a more simple level, but then described that space-time had to be replaced with another theory. Like the idea of space and time as we observe it probably has more to do with symmetry and density and entropy. Really density and entropy are the main 2 points, but symmetry is like what, the qualities of the symmetry are defined by the density and entropy. So we can imagine, light as this thing that is affecting us. It's radiating us, and as it hits us, it shakes us and our particles, and we have,
you mean like photons, or what are you talking about?
Photons. Yeah, but also more, because radiation beyond photons, the idea of field, just the idea of like radio field, radio wave field is enough. So like the actual radiation changes our shape, right? And we have a certain density, and we have like a point of 3-dimensional space and another point of 3-dimensional space, and we can go between them into the future. Like we can either be older with a hand or lose our hand and be older without a hand. Like these are like 5th-dimensional choices, right? But they're still defined by light or by stars in a lot of a sense. So all the stars matter a lot. There was a recent article about, was it like let me see if I can find it, 17 billion suns in a black hole observed by the Nature Astronomy telescope, which is interesting because, like, again, these are things that are like observed phenomenologically. It doesn't really matter how far away they are or what they are, like in terms of like distance. Like if people are talking about like, from flat Earth perspective, right? But like just in general, like the idea of having all sorts of energy in one point is really interesting, and that there's this like extremely likely chance that sources of light that we experience will disappear, but that they're affecting us because they're defining our like these fields from like point A to point B. Like we might say this, I mean, a lot of the ancients said this is the time of the constellation of Taurus. And we're like, oh, that's because it was right over their heads, but it might be more important than that. It might be that this has like actual energy significance, right?
Aren't we just like so much of the time just kind of going off of like Stephen Hawking's like ideas around black holes? Because no, this is the thing, is that I'm just like I really like I like Nassim Haramein's explanation or postulation that when we're looking like at a black hole, we're seeing one side of something, like, but he would argue that like, is it possible that the sun itself is like the other side of a black hole? Like if you were to go on the other side of a black hole, you'd be seeing radiating energy. Like, is that like, because we don't really know what a black hole is. And I think one of the problems with Stephen Hawking's book on the matter, what is it, A Brief History of Time, is that what it's called? But that yeah, he has kind of this, he asserts something like he's so like, we're so knowledgeable on black holes, and I'm like, are we really? Like, I don't think I mean, I'm not a physicist, so maybe I don't know jack.
Well, I think Stephen Hawking's was definitely wrong a lot about black holes, right? Like that's a big part of what happened after that book. Was he had a student who ran a simulation experiment and disproved his black hole theory. So we know not to go with that book. And I did my best not to imagine things from that perspective. I still imagine things from my 1990s, like Scholastic Book Fair magazine perspective, where I was reading about black holes, which probably is connected to Stephen Hawking's, but definitely was influenced by chaos math professors and interesting. Scholastic had some interesting people that were working there. And I came to this conclusion that we're probably in a black hole, right? Which is, it corresponds also with Koresh Teed and all of these ideas of being in like a hollow earth idea, but it's a hollow universe where the density is at the center and everything is pulled out, right?
Yeah.
So it's either the space, distant space, is actually like more and more dense as it gets to the center core of what we're referring to as, outer space. But likely all of these experiences that we're having are framed by radiation, which is holding things in place. More likely than gravity, it's radiation, because these are the things that are allowing for field and ion field to expand. So like there was an article also recently that was talking about flat earth, because that's funny, like that the earth might have actually once been flat a long time ago, kind of
a long time ago in a galaxy far away,
6,000 years exactly.
But this is New Atlantis, and these are very anti-flatties. But this is what I would call this soft disclosure, because if you're talking about the idea that space-time doesn't really exist, then what we're getting to is the idea that everything is kind of an electric universe, and this is not any more distant than yesterday or tomorrow in terms of or like Florida or Africa in terms of a concept, right?
Right. If we can say the same thing for space as we can for time, are you of the feeling, or I don't want to say belief, so I use feeling, but I don't think either are operative. But like that time is the fourth dimension of space, which is space being three-dimensional. Because sometimes people say that like that's not questionable, and sometimes people say it like that. What?
Yeah, I don't really think of it like per se. I mean, I think that we experience things in maybe 5 dimensions, and so the idea of building on dimensions makes sense because you have an infinite understanding of dimension X, or so then now you have dimension Y, and you need to have those understandings to build up on. So having it be that your youthful self and your older self are tied together, like these are like sequences, but really it has more to do with divine principles, because you become the thing that's most logical to happen. I think you talked about this idea of like instant karma, like as soon as you've done the thing, it starts the butterfly effects that are moving.
Oh, well, I've also just talked about the way karma was explained to me by a monk at Shasta Abbey, was that it's kind of always already, in a sense, like it's not that you did an action and now here's like a repercussion or a punishment or even like a reflex. He was saying, yeah, that's true on a certain level, no doubt. But what they relate to what karma actually is the paradigm that you create for yourself in what is assumed, the assumptions that you make about your relationship to other people, to yourself, And so like that reality is what the action extends from. And to treat it that it's just the action is kind of missing the point of where the karma really is, because the real effect of you doing that is just to further that confirmation of a limited or expanded paradigm, depending on how you relate to it. People like are bashing the hell out of freaking Einstein lately, and I think that some of it is like actually good, like because I can see what the arguments are, but I can't help that I'm like inevitably like a little biased, because I had this fucking great book of his diary entries that I actually ended up giving to a friend who I loaned it to, who didn't want to give it back, and I said, oh, screw it. But like the things that he had to say are like I don't know how many people are actually like
I mean, I used to hate him a lot more until I found out he wore lady shoes, and then I was like, oh,
he's wearing lady shoes.
I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I was like, okay, you're like, it's like I was at first I was like, this guy is just and then I realized, I was like, oh, okay, he knows, like he's just he's
Do you
like
guys think that Stephen Hawking was able to avoid criticism because of his condition? Like no one wanted to be the guy that like shot him down.
Totally.
Literally,
And not just that, it's everybody's peers, the way that they would get judged. It's like COVID hysteria shit. It's like you can't say the thing, because what originally got him recognized was, you know, completely profound and valid. It's just that it became this assumption because of that everything that followed, like he is just this symbol of brilliance. He got put in the Einstein pedestal thing. And the thing about Einstein is he didn't really do that about himself. Stephen Hawking did. That's the difference. Is like Einstein was just doing his work, and when asked how it felt to be the smartest person in the world, he's like, I don't know, ask Tesla. Like that's how he was. So it's just like, and as far as like Zionism goes and all that kind of shit, it's like he had a very nuanced view that doesn't read anything like what you see today in regards to what is supposedly the same thing. So it's true for MLK too. So it's like, I mean, I think that no one should be above criticism, and that's what people are reacting to. They're like, you can't tell me that I can't criticize. But then there's also the plagiarism issue, which I believe we've talked about before. The plagiarism thing, I don't really take that seriously, because I know that that's how that whole world works, is you build off of what anybody has done, whatever you have available to get to what you're trying to articulate. So he took from all these places, and they're like, oh, he didn't give him credit. Well, I don't think they cared about credit. Like, in that realm, I don't think they cared about credit to the degree that we care about credit now, or at least the way we relate to credit now. It's I
think some like some mathematicians who are really not good with people might have been a little jealous of what he really was, which was a popularist, and like, why can't I be? You know, it's like that song from Smash Mouth, like, I tried your shoes on, but you're the fawns. Like, you'll never be the fawns. And like, he was able to like, and I hate to give him that much credit, because I don't really like Einstein. I like that movie from Tasmania, Young Einstein. Have you ever seen that movie? Where
But I mean, I'm serious though. Like I have my conception. I know I'm gonna get people pissed at me for this, and I really don't care, because I'm not even. I hope people hear, like, when I'm qualifying too, that I'm like, I don't think he should be above criticism. It's just the things that I'm seeing him criticized for, largely like the plagiarism thing that I see repeated. I don't think that that's how it really worked in that field. Like, because especially when it comes to like unified field theory, because you're taking from all these things. Like maybe I'm biased too, because I make fucking collages where I use other people's artistic expression and I build it into some other communication or whatever. But I don't know. I see him taking what he had available.
Memes are huge. Like if people can't get their theory made popular, and especially then you've got, you know, like Jesuits like Lemaire, who he popularized the MC equals MC squared from Lemaire's theories, but Lemaire was being somewhat suppressed by the Catholic Church. Not super bad, because they didn't completely understand what he was talking about, but he was still, you know, not something they were popularizing. So through Einstein, a lot of these things, same thing with Julian Huxley. Like, people think Julian Huxley is so cool because he popularized Teilhard Chardin's new spheric ideas. Like, all of these guys who popularize things deserve a little bit of credit in the same way like a YouTuber is probably. I think like Einstein was probably like Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you know, I don't like Neil deGrasse Tyson that much either.
Just to reiterate something I've probably said in the past, but it's so applicable. It's like one of the significant things in this book was that it showed his personal diary entries before the atomic bomb was dropped. and his whole process around what his rationale was, because he had to agree for them to be able to use that, and he didn't think that they're going to use it on anybody but Germany. He thought, and only in the case if Germany was really winning the war. Like that was his whole idea. And then you can read after the bomb was dropped, and he was just horrified that they did that on Japan. And then he was like, I seriously am afraid that the thing that I was afraid of happening with Germany is going to happen with the US after seeing the way that they did this. And so, like, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but and so when he talks about a one world government, he's like, this is inevitable. This is where we're headed. He was like, if we don't have a one world government, we're screwed, because nations will continue to fight nations until we all die, or he was afraid of, you know, cataclysm. But then at the same time, he's like, too bad that this one world government will be like, it will be the result of one nation or a few nations dominating the rest of the world through military strength. And that,
well,
you know,
you have to imagine like 100 years ago or something, like you were to explain to somebody that like a computer in the future, like you're like, I'm from the future. I have two things. One is a missile that can blow people up, can blow up cities, right? It's like one of the biggest missiles, and it costs, you know, about the same amount as this computer that can guide missiles anywhere in the world, find out where people are in the world, can read, write, and change the world. You know, it's like sentient, essentially, that they're about the same cost. Try to explain that, someone would be very they'd be very confused about why this computer wasn't worth hundreds of times more than these missiles, right? Or why this you know, I think that's the thing, because it seems like it should be a more valuable idea.
Here's what it, sorry to come back to this, but it drives me fucking nuts, is that I really feel like what we're seeing with RFK Jr., where like the way that the tabloids treat the whole thing, where it's just like, my God, there's so much fucking disinformation. They don't care. They just do it. I think the opposite happened with Einstein, where they just put him on such a fucking pedestal and was like, you're the man. And most people didn't read or see what Einstein actually said about himself, or what he was doing, or the whole fucking thing, like his treatment. Like he's just trying to reach an end to make something that's actually usable, which ended up happening. Like you know, it's a formula. And so in order to reach that point, like his attitude towards it, I don't think he fucking cared or was after credit. But meanwhile, everyone's just giving him infinite praise. It's like the opposite. The scapegoat thing works both ways, right? You imbue it or you destroy it. And so that's anthropologically, like you raise somebody up on this pedestal, or you fucking just tear them apart, you know. And we see both happen with the same people, you know. But it's understandable that people would react the way that they do when that happened with him, you know. Like I don't know, having been exposed to some of his personal ideas and writings that go so far against what I was raised to think Einstein was about himself. It's like, I'm just, dude, that guy could sit in fucking full lotus, and he was pretty fucking humble. Like, what the hell?
Has anyone taken the title yet? Because like I remember growing up, one of the phrases was like, "Good job, Einstein." You know what I mean? And it was like a ubiquitous word to call somebody like a genius, even sarcastically. But
did you ever get nice shot, Oswald?
No, I like
my dad. My dad always said as a kid, "Nice shot, Oswald." It took me years to know what it meant. I was like,
he's talking about the rabbit, of course, not the guy who shot the president. Yeah, or shot the president.
But I'm wondering, like, who's going to take that mantle? Is it going to be like, nice shot, you know, DeGrasse Tyson, or are we still waiting for the next replacement? Because no one's ever said like, good job, Hawking. I don't think.
Nice shot, Kobe Bryant. Too soon? Sorry. What about Jupiter's flat now? That was the next one. Jupiter has been flat at one point. I think they're gonna go full flat. Like the whole universe is, because it's so much. It's a meme, you know. And like this will be the next thing that everyone's talking about.
Wait, this is the Independent. What are we? Yeah. What is the argument? All right.
Everybody, everywhere. I'm telling you, they're like, universe is flat, and therefore Saturn used to be flat. Informed viewing angle taken from certain information shows it must have at one point been a fluffy pancake. Here's what.
Sorry, has anyone cornered the market on a flat Mars yet, or a flat moon?
Dude, flat Mars. Isn't flat Mars what the Edith Thornburg, whatever, Greta had a T-shirt for it, the Flat Mars Society.
Flat Mars, oh man,
she already cornered that ages ago, dog. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
Someone put up on a pedestal by the media.
Flat Earth, flat stars. I think it's going to be interesting because if you're thinking about it from a video game perspective, every video game is designed on a flat plane. Like have you ever been on a curvy, like except for like Mario Galaxy or something?
There have been
like,
a few. Yeah, there was
yeah,
actually
it's
one
weird though.
on like Sega Genesis, I think, or
It's
PlayStation
pretty
1
weird.
for sure.
I mean, so yeah, I think that also people putting on VR headsets and everything, they're going to start experiencing things in this. Maybe they're preparing people for some sort of flat plane existence in VR where everything's just a big flat metaverse.
Hey, didn't Greta say the same thing that Michael Jackson did, where she was just like, "You stole my childhood"? What's the strange attraction between Michael Jackson and Greta Thunberg, I wonder?
I don't know. Michael Jackson's pretty based, and haven't you been paying attention to like Paris? There's been a bunch of media just surrounding Paris Jackson in the last month or two. Have you noticed that?
No, tell me.
I don't know. I don't care as much as I used to care. I think I would have cared a lot more like when Michael Jackson was alive, and I was like, how's that guy's kid? But she's got like $8 million a year or whatever. But you know how it is. Like their whole thing is controlled by some media conglomerate. They don't have the power anymore. You know, they can't. That's why we're not hearing Michael Jackson.
That's an IVF baby.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
I bet MJ had no idea about Biden bucks though. Like when he was leaving her $8 million a year, he probably had no idea that was like leaving her like $1.5 million a year.
Yeah, well, I don't think he chose any of this. You know what I mean? I think it's probably like the way it works because of the amount of money that's in stocks or something like that. And there's a trust. They're probably trust funds.
Like an Olsen twin.
That's the thing. Like, I don't know. You know who she looks like to me? I've done this before. What's it called? National Geographic Kurdish woman. Do you remember this magazine from like, what was it? It was like National Geographic 1970s.
I know who you're talking about though, with like the red scarf or whatever.
Yeah, I need to start using Google. I'm sorry, I don't know why I don't do it. Safe search is blurred at least.
That's her right there with the green. That's
yeah. That's her today. Okay, so maybe there I was just there. So if I went back a second, there she is. Yeah. So whenever I looked at that, as soon as I saw Paris, I was like, that girl reminds me of her. I wasn't sure if he like got DNA like that he wanted, you know, or something like that. I'm not sure, but that would be pretty sweet, right? Like if she's like
her eyes don't look all like her, you know, her pituitary is just like twice the size as normal. Like
she doesn't look that much like Michael Jackson, you know, but that's cool, I guess.
I don't think you could, even if you were actually his kid. There's no way you would look like him.
No. You might look like him when he was 8, a little bit.
Yeah.
But wait, Michael Jackson. I was gonna say mass of 17 billion suns in the black hole thing is cool because remember the Silver Surfer, and this whole idea that like you know there's just what does that sound like? It doesn't sound like Einstein at all. It sounds like Colossus or whatever.
He's supposed to be Mercury, right? That's the idea of a Silver Surfer, that he's literally Mercury.
And this is Saturn essentially. Cronus is Saturn.
It's Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Is there if there's a Silver Surfer movie, I want to play it with the Quicksilver messenger service.
I want to be Quicksilver. That'd be sweet. Although I don't want to be the Quicksilver for. Oh, that was a good thing. This is totally off topic, but Quicksilver Marvel. They went and used this kid. I finally saw it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer." Right.
Those goggles, they need to be down and they need to be not glasses actually.
I hope somebody does some more memes about that. Like there should be more like Quicksilver, X-Men, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Wait, did this guy play Dahmer?
Yeah, this is the dude who played Dahmer.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm slow tonight, guys.
No, it's all right. I just think that's really hilarious though, because it's like of all things he could be in, dude, like you could be this like superhero that slows down time and saves babies. And one that eats them. I don't know. Them. Yeah, it's like
that was crazy. I was totally willing to just go along with you that he looked like Jeffrey Dahmer, and then it's like he played Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay.
Yeah, you weren't even gonna be like, hey, you know, it's not nice to say about people, but no, like he's decided to do it. Well, hold on. Here's the other one I was looking at, which was like gray hybrid human discussions, because you know these are the things that matter to me more than like current events. And this idea of like science of aliens and what kind of genetic code would extraterrestrials look like, and this is the Smithsonian. Come on, that's hilarious. They're writing.
That's a good question. Do you think they would be symmetrical? I think that's usually where you would start at. Do you think
Everything's
an alien
symmetry.
species would be symmetrical?
Probably
What's the date on this? What's the date on this article?
2021. May 10th, 2021. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's right when the Smithsonian started to go downhill. Sorry. I'm not saying that this is downhill, but it is.
It wasn't before this. Okay.
No, actually, the Smith as well. It's all relative, but the Smithsonian was traditionally, a better place to get information. But yeah, not anymore.
I mean, no, there's some pretty interesting ideas just talking about what they expect, and also like we've talked about crabification. There's certain things that happen way more often than the human form. Exoskeleton is probably more likely. Things like that.
Somebody says Smithsonian go in History Channel. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes a bit of sense. Yeah, I think crab people. Crab people is the most likely thing to come, right? Think about it. Crab people,
But that would be like just at the time they emerge from their alien ocean, right? Or do you think that crab people it would stay crab people and they would evolve to the point of being able to leave their planet as crabs?
Do all crabs can't what are the things that don't they have shells that they can take off, right? Like they find shells, like
hermit crabs.
Hermit crabs, yeah. What if they're like hermit crabs? Hermit crabs, because like hermit crabs, man. If you didn't have, well, they're still pretty. Well, I don't know. Yeah, like if you had to find your own home, then you can imagine something like this building like giant plastic armor. Super soldier. Has anyone ever done this before? Let's find out. Hermit Crab Super Soldier, 1990s comic of transhumanist Hermit Crab Super.
You're gonna get a black one, an Asian one.
I hope to God. I hope that there's a lot of diversity in my. I did one earlier that was supposed to be a senator at a Dixie Cup party.
They look like ATF agents.
Yeah. Everybody wanted to be at the party, bro. Everybody wanted to be at the party.
These are getting good, man. I mean, they're starting to look great, just like right off the
bat.
That
looks like Jeffrey Dahmer as Superman, which is funny. This is what I expect, actually. Okay. I think if we're gonna shouldn't this be what you want? This is it. This is what we're gonna see. Because
look at those biceps.
Yeah. You don't want to mess with it. But more likely than a human. And look at its eyes. Look at its eyes sticking out. That's pretty sweet. I like its eyes up there. I feel like that's the most likely kind of right? What do you think? And humans are hermit crabs.
Somebody would have gotten paid to do this in the 1950s, like a pretty fair amount of money to take the time to draw this. And it's just generated this image so fast. That's incredible.
In seconds, yeah. I mean, you can do it real time now. There's a new one out called Stable Diffusion Lightning, which is even faster than Stable Diffusion Turbo, which like it's getting to the point that it's gonna be silly, man. Like the real time, all this like real time AI to be able to actually just completely change who's on like streaming is gonna be within a couple of years probably.
You saw OpenAI has been probably scraping a bunch of Unreal Engine stuff, and now they've just released that you can make games in Engine. They released OpenAI is making games in Engine, so pretty much the next crazy thing will be just gamers able to make universes. Like that's about to emerge in the next month or two.
Wow.
Crazy. Well, I just want the AI to do that. Screw the gamers. Just let AI be like, here's every game that I've ever liked. Now go and cook for a month and get back to me and combine, Shadowrun and GTA and NBA Jam, like making them all one game, and it could do that.
Yeah, the mashup thing. I like that. I'm surprised. Like I was saying this, but like I'm surprised that there's not more like mashup films
awesome.
Where it's like what? Why? Like, yeah, like I don't know. Like I feel like when somebody's gonna make a sequel to something. And like I guess they're doing it with like Marvel movies, right? Where they take the different Marvel characters and it all ties together in this big kind of tapestry of shit. But I don't know. I like the idea of like taking different films that are kind of like related in a certain way and then doing a sequel to both. Like if you're like, that was a classic 80s movie, and if you're gonna redo 80s movies or like make sequels to them like much later, like I think that's the way to go. Doesn't have to be 80s, but you know what I'm saying? Like mashup movies where like this is a sequel to Swingers and the sequel to
but this is Barbenheimer, right?
Right,
Like,
it's
Barbenheimer
thing.
Barbenheimer.
I'm going to take
Right.
all of the deleted scenes from You've Got Mail, and I'm going to combine them with Tombstone. It's going to be like, you can just put them in between it, and then it will write the scenes that make sense that had to happen between them to make those scenes make sense. And, you know, that'll be how it works. Like, not only that, but it'll probably take 20 years for people to make licensing for you to use like modern stuff like Marvel, but maybe stuff like from the 50s, you'll be putting your own faces on them, changing the actors and voices in the next year or two. You know, being able to watch like a filter for Netflix that just makes people who you want them to be in your friends.
Is that crazy narcissistic to just want to watch a movie where it's all your? That's so Aphex Twin, right?
That's what I want to do, but I don't think everyone wants to do that.
Everyone is you.
I think
just watching
the most normative thing about me is that I want to watch Star Wars Episode 3, I think, maybe 2. I don't know. I'm learning to love it, but with Hayden Christensen replaced with Mark Lanter from the Beverly Hills 90210 remake. You know what I mean? That's the most normative thing I want to do. I think a lot of people, though, when I say that, like a lot of people want to do things like that. They're like, if only I could watch, you know, Helen Hunt in Terminator. Like, I kind of think that'd be sweet. I don't know. I would probably do that. I would probably do a lot of things like that.
We were kind of just discussing something similar because I was saying like, what was the example? I think it was it Tom Hanks in Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah,
with Meg Ryan instead of Nicole Kidman,
and with the bee scene from the new Wicker Man, just like thrown in, like have Tom Hanks go through the bee scene in The Shining room during Eyes Wide Shut. Like you can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the original. I was saying the other night that the original idea for Eyes Wide Shut was with Steve Martin in the 70s when Kubrick first thought to do it. And originally was set to be like a comedy in the same way that Dr. Strangelove was originally set to be a very serious movie, but Peter Sellers is just so fucking funny that he said screw it, and they were just like, it's a comedy, and they made it a black comedy. But they do that. One goes one way, the other one goes the other. It's weird, but I want to see that. I want to see the Eyes Wide Shut. Like this is the thing. Like so many of the things about AI kind of scare me or bother me, but I love that idea. Like that would be so cool.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I think in your lifetime for sure.
Probably next year, actually.
Yeah, it's gonna be here soon enough for it to happen that we can experience it. But there's like a new thing that comes with that, which I think might be a weird in itself, and that's that version of that movie might be your favorite one, and there might not be a single person on the planet that cares about that version of that mashup. They're like, I don't want to see Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in Eyes Wide Shut, and I'll never want to see it. So now you're stuck being like, this is my favorite movie, and I'll never meet anyone that's ever seen it because it was kind of custom tailored for me. And even if you found someone, it's almost like trying to explain to somebody like a dream you had. Like at a certain point, they're just like, look, man, I'm sick of hearing about your dream. I'm gonna like
right. Well, what's ironic about that is that the book that Eyes Wide Shut came from is called Dream Story, and the movie is exactly what you just said. It's trying to explain your dream to somebody.
Well,
but I think that's a weird place we're going to be in because it destroys the concept of going to the water cooler and like, hey, did you check that show out last night? What did you think? Because 5 people go up to the water cooler and they all watch the same, show, but they all had like their own custom tailored versions of it. So it kind of destroys a little bit of that like commonality that you
but you gotta imagine it's like Netflix or something where they make like 5 different, they know that there's like different people in different parts of the day watching the shows, so they know who's doing what with their day, and so they prepare the rituals so that everyone comes to the same conclusion through different rituals, right? They're watching this show and eventually they realize the same message that someone else watched another show, and so at the end of the day they come back to the water cooler and they all just are in agreement because they've gone through their. It doesn't matter where they
That
are.
was the moral of the day. Like all the programming resulted in like that particular Aesop fable, essentially.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of like what it used to be, which was that people say, "Well, what do you think about this?" And they have difference of opinion over what happened on the television. Now it's more about different ways of coming to agreement from different perspectives. So they can be evil. You could use that to force perspectives. But it could also be used to pretty much like control your mind, right?
Right. Remember what they did with Carrie Fisher at the end of Rogue One, where you see Carrie Fisher and she had died while they were doing it. So, but they were able to generate it. And it's so convincing, and I really like that. But the thing is that it seems like actors and actresses, like the more movies that they've been in, the more you have to draw from if you were to like replicate to like the fine tune, like it really make it convincing that it's them. Like the new Indiana Jones where he's so much younger or whatever, like that. I don't know, it just seems like it's like a qliphothic immortalizing of people, because it's like, you already say when you're caught on film that you live forever in a sense. Like Marilyn Monroe lives forever because she lives forever through her films. But when you're like, oh well, you could actually make a new Marilyn Monroe movie based on just graphing all of her features and then like replicating it. It's like I'm saying I'm Captain Obvious over here, but still, like, that's just so far out that is definitely happening. Yeah.
Jeremy Fawcett says, I listen to every think tank, but nobody I know has ever heard of this. Well,
heard of what?
What we're talking about?
I'm waiting for the next tweet.
Yeah, we can't wait. Please let us know. Well, I had thoughts about reality shifting because we're talking about how to shift reality, right? So I was going to ask you first, like, what do you think about that idea? Like, can you shift reality? Like, we're already kind of doing it through our choice making from one moment to the next, like you're saying, through time. But how much can you like dilate time if you're late on your way to work and make sure that you're there on time?
There's that, if you're talking about like what you're speaking to the will, what you create, that's possible, that's potential, that's there. But at the same time, like the Philip K. Dick notion that there's like parallel existences that are that exist kind of simultaneously, like there's different routes it could have taken. They're kind of like tree branches dividing and they go in these different directions or whatever, and we're finding ourselves in one based on, as a reflection of whatever our conception is. Like, I'm more open to that than I am like manipulating it through the will in any like sense beyond like the choices that we make in the present moment, like in like a profound way. Like the underlying like dynamics of the thing are kind of set. It's just like I do entertain that ballast loop idea, though, that the screen between us and that too could be more fragile than we realize.
Can you pop into a universe where your son's no longer dead or something like that?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. Or just that, but then along with everything else that comes with it, like he believed that certain books that he had written were actually like real. They weren't fiction, even though they were written in the style of fiction. And Flow My Tears, the policeman said, and like this kind of like this police state that was like that that we're moving towards. He sees a future, but it doesn't have to be that, but we're gravitating towards that or something like that. Like, but then it could change in an instant. Like you could like literally like remove yourself completely from the current paradigm world that you exist within. I don't know. I can entertain that.
I feel like we have to break all the rules of time travel. Time travel main rules: at all costs avoid your ancestors. Well, like, wouldn't be the first thing you'd want to do is interact with your ancestors? I mean, someone I think earlier mentioned that they just watched Trancers, which is based. And I was watching Trancers recently, which is, I think, my new favorite Christmas movie, because I hadn't really thought about it. But like, this is beyond Die Hard, even. Like, this Trancers is such a Christmas movie. Like, he actually like beats to death a Trancer Santa Claus. I don't want to spoil it for you, but don't worry, you'll get your Christmas spirit. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this like a couple months ago.
I think there's like shapeshifters in this one too.
Oh, everything you'd ever want. And then there's 3 more. There's Trancers 3 or 4 even, I think. That was a bunch of Trancers. But basically, he has to travel through his family line, right? So it's almost as if the DNA that has been repeating itself into you has field going back to the beginning of replication, right? So you can jump into certain people that have the same frequency, and that only exists because as long as you're perpetuated by field. So also the idea that you exist in the future only because someone had you is really interesting, right? Like that's a big part of like Back to the Future, is that if his parents don't get together, then he doesn't exist. So it seems like really important in some way, this idea of like genetic biogenesis.
Well, Quantum Leap had a little aspect of this too, because I remember some very like not well fleshed out plot lines, but there was like a certain logic as to who he could jump in, and they were trying to like kind of predict where he might go in the next spot, where there was like a theme to some of the people that he jumped into.
The only one I don't understand is like, how did Al find him when he leaped back into his great grandfather, you know, or whatever? Because that seems crazy, right? Like, how did he, you know, I get the genetic line, that was like a transfers moment, but whatever. Point is, you know, this makes sense to me. This idea of field connecting the past to like, there's a loop there from when the machines turned off and when the machines turned on, like primer, and that's included in like the biogenesis of DNA. So pretty much, we could probably travel back to as far back as humanity exists, but maybe not before that.
Right. I don't know if travels like because we talk about time travel, and I'm thinking Back to the Future and Doctor Who and all the things we're looking at. But I don't know. Like it seems like if we're saying the time is non-linear, is it even really traveling then? You know, like, and there's also that idea that like things that you change in the present, in a sense, can change the past, because you know on a certain level it's not linear. So I don't know.
Well, the movie Frequency is one of my favorite examples of this, where the guy teaches, he gets in contact with us like his younger self and is able to communicate with them through like radio frequencies, right? They have like
AOL stock. You have to buy AOL. No, it was Yahoo. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't tell him that, but he tells him like where something's at, and he like etches something into wood, and in real time, the guy in modern day is seeing this thing being etched, and then they find out this way to like hide something, and he gets like I can't remember the exact little plot points.
He solves his dad's cop case from like 20 years earlier, but he also gives his brother the stock tip for Yahoo, which was a big deal. So
was it really Yahoo?
Yeah, it was Yahoo, because then the guy drives up in a car with Yahoo on his license plate. Like he has a Mercedes.
No shit.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie since it came out, but I remember that part because Yahoo was a big deal.
But that's pre-Q Jim Caviezel.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's like The Graduate, when he's like, I got one word for you, plastics, you know, and that was where you wanted to put your stock at that time.
I know I've been like less emphatic. Oh wait, sorry, there was my bad. Box Saga.
I don't know if you know, we just did a 5.5 hour episode
on Box Saga.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, with Andy Rouse from Deep Share?
No, it was just me and Juan.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll watch that. Is it up online yet?
I'll send you a link. It's on my Patreon right now.
Okay.
Box Saga. This is a hate crime in Canada right now, by the way.
All right.
I was at the bank yesterday, and I saw this Taylor Swift sticker on the inside of the teller's window. Like, she just like, I could see that brightening her day, you know, just having a like colorful Taylor Swift sticker.
She stands with Taylor. She stands with Swift.
Yeah, at Wells Fargo. Yeah.
She sits with Swift.
How long is this song? Do you have like a 20-minute version?
No, that one's just about 2 minutes or something like that, I think. Still, you know.
Should have a little meter of like how long do you want it to go, and just see how far people want to push it.
Box Saga. Okay,
I mean,
well,
with AI, we could make like an infinite length version
I have
of that now.
super long songs. Like, don't tempt me, bro. I could
40-minute Box Saga.
I got 6 minute, 8 minute, 11 minute. I got 15 minutes. I got 20-minute song. I've been crazy. Sometimes you just go for it, especially if it's trance and you're like, all right, let that beat go for like 3 more minutes before it figures out itself, you know. But aliens are breeding with humans, says university instructor, and scientists say otherwise. But what do they know? Outlandish claims of a secret breeding program created alien human hybrids who can survive climate change, right? And you probably heard about like the global hive mind hybridization project, right? You know what I'm talking about? The global mind redesign. I don't know if they even got like links to that on the internet. Global mind redesign. What this is, no. Oh, dude. So basically in the 80s, aliens contacted the Earth and made deals to, you know, work with the humans, like a bunch of different kinds of aliens. And one of them, which has been described as sort of insectoid, was very confused by humanity because humanity is very, you know, individualistic and people keep fighting. And so the idea of injecting like their sort of hive mentality into humanity, into the Generation Z and like the Zoomer, the new kids, the alphas and all that, like they're going to be a lot less human and individualistic and a lot more, you know, transhuman and like locusts, right? That's kind of that's the idea of like the open, the global mind redesign program, right?
It sounds more efficient.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, because like you would have less war and people can just, I mean, imagine how much time people spend sitting inside now. Like they can move around to their computer, they can sit on their bed, they can sit down. Like they're just pretty soon you just got your VR headset, and just imagine how much of your time you're spending. Like people think they're working, they're like modding a game or something like that, and just nothing's happening. Like compare that to like your life 200 years ago, where you're like running around, getting in wagons, all this like running and jumping, you know.
You know what would be efficient, Thomas, if we were all like the alien from Alien, you know, like if aliens, etc.
Like a xenomorph?
We're just like a xenomorph. Thank you. Sorry.
I like
because you know better, that's like ultimate like hive thing or species. Yeah,
species is better because it's still got that human ring to it. But yeah, in general, I think so. But then doesn't she like want to just like? Cause then we'd end up like really like insects. There'd be like a queen, and there'd just be a hive, and we'd all live in the hive, and everyone.
She's so hot, though, you know.
Yeah,
you know. But that movie has a great ending, by the way. I like the ending. I mean, it's you know, is this considered a C movie or is this a B movie? Is it a B- movie?
Species 3 is a C movie. Species 2 is about Hunter Biden. Species 1 is an A movie.
I don't think I know Species 3. Is that where it's at?
Let's start with Species 2 because the poster was like a cool hologram, and like I had this poster on my wall. And I used to like walk back and forth, and she become a lizard, and then she become a girl, and you're like, you know,
that's funny. Boys. I at the Aptos Theater, I remember asking them for the poster when they were done with it for the first one, and I totally had that in my room for years. The first Species poster.
But Species 2 is about like the sun. Well, I don't want to show his face even, but it was like, right? He's like a Hunter Biden dude. He's like an astronaut. And then he like goes on like this crazy breeding escapade and like a Vegas prostitute like building. Like that movie was intense. That was, I had no idea like about Hunter Biden yet. So like I didn't articulate it until recently. But
once you learned about Hunter Biden, it was more like, oh, the guy from Species 2.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
By the way, I didn't upload this one, but the Species, the first one, syncs with Debbie Harry's album Cuckoo incredibly well.
Really? Why don't you upload that?
I should. I'm working on stuff all the time though of other projects, but I need to get to that one. That's no, that's a really good one. And so it also works with Videodrome. You can go either direction.
Remember Debbie Harry transformation into H.G. Geiger alien for these rare
there's music videos for this album that are just totally bizarre, where she's in this outfit and she's using all of his biomechanical structures and stuff, and it's surrounded by smoke, and it's pretty trippy.
Does the video just not exist?
No, you can watch the videos of Debbie Harry and it's all set up with HR Giger stuff.
No, the sync I think he was asking about.
Oh, the sync. No, I haven't uploaded the sync. I have it in one of my hard drives. But yeah, I think I wanted to play around with the timing a little bit more. But yeah, no, it's just there's a thematic thing taking place where like it's the first track, for example, is about like a dog, like jump dog or whatever. It's like you're training a dog or something. But then like they're like got her in that box. You remember the beginning of it, and so she's kind of like a caged animal, you know. And so
oh yeah,
treating it. And so it's also funny because the actor that's in there in Species is the same guy in Reservoir Dogs, where he's like, "Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?" And so there's kind of a thing going on. Yeah, it's like there's a thematic thing taking place. I really enjoy.
I just watched Dark Star recently. I forget you've seen Dark Star, right?
What, for the first time? You just saw Dark Star?
I didn't see it for the first time, but I finally was watching it with Brittany, and I was checking out. Like, I watched the documentary on it for the first time, which was really interesting because I hadn't seen the documentary before. Where it just goes.
Is it on Alien also?
No, the documentary is just really on Dark Star and how you see USC students are deprived of their work and they were secretly working on this film. That's just Carpenter was like working with Brammer, what's his name again? The guy who actually did all the work and then doesn't get credit for it. O'Bannon.
Yeah. Dan O'Bannon.
Dan O'Bannon did all kinds of crazy work on Dark Star and then like basically got shafted, I guess, by John Carpenter. But like super sweet, crazy movie, right? Like,
it's not bad. It's not like I wish I could have seen it at the time because it was probably like the best movie ever. Like the day it came out. You have to.
Dude, people put down Citizen Kane too nowadays. I've been seeing a lot of hate for Citizen Kane. I think all the things that we're supposed to think are just like the best things are like we're now like rejecting them. So it's like it's understandable. There's like a pendulum kind of thing, and we have shifts or whatever. But I'm like, dude, it's all about the context. Like you have to even just an inkling of considering what it was to see that at the time, because there's things that had just never been done before, and now those things are commonplace. So now you visit and you're like not really that impressed, but it's like, no, dude, he did things at the time that just didn't exist, like that floor shot where they're like, he's like, we're gonna get the camera this low, it's gonna be there, and they're like, you can't do that, it's not even possible. You have the tripod and you're gonna lower, like, what are you gonna do? And he like runs and grabs a jackhammer and just starts like jackhammering the floor. Orson Welles, right? So he's like jackhammering the floor and then like on his own, and then he digs it out, and then he's like, okay, put the camera down there, and now we got the fucking shot. It's like that level of like what's going on. Like you wouldn't know, you're just watching the scene and you're like, oh, that's a cool little low shot. It's like, no, that's never been done before.
Yeah, I think that's what we need. We need to be able to see like the context of things more. They need the deleted back scene of Orson Welles. Like, we want to see all that, but like try to get kids to read a book from 100 years ago. I mean, try to get the bestsellers of books from 10 years ago or whatever. Like, things are dated in such a Shakespearean way now. We're so removed from everything, and I think maybe it is context, but no one has I don't think people are grasping at the past with the same enthusiasm when people thought it was new.
Kubrick with this sliding the track for the camera, like he invented that, like for the, I think it's The Killing, or is it the other one? It's his first one, was it Fear and Desire, where it's like he's like running the camera along this track, and you just see the scanning shot that goes, it's in a house, and it's like, but it's literally running on a track. So it's like that didn't, you watch it now and it doesn't seem that impressive because you're used to it, What would that have been like?
The 3M back projection, right? Like that was something he also completely sort of revolutionized.
I always say the most impressive part about 2001: A Space Odyssey is the Dawn of Man sequence, because for that to all be shot indoors and to be that convincing, like you really do feel like, so that explains the lunar landing footage, if you ask me, or that other guy.
Actually, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm curious on your guys' opinion of just standard atmospheric refraction, because if like it seems like this could be a crux of what a lot of people end up like going really completely over the top over when it comes to like the flat earth aspect and round earth aspect, but also just on like optics, and especially when it comes to like cameras, right? So the atmospheric refraction is when someone stands on one side and then they say like, oh, I can see like Chicago on the other side of Lake Michigan or something, or whatever these different explanations are for flat Earth, right?
It's mirage. It has to be.
Well, that's the concept is that you're seeing like a completely different position where it is below the horizon, but because of atmospheric refraction, that's what's showing it above the horizon. And it's crazy because this was observed in like the mid 1800s or in like the late 1880s, and the same exact experiment that people use to cite that flat Earth, it like they also use the same experiment to cite a spherical Earth, and the only difference is whether or not you're taking the photo down close to the ground, ironically, or if you're taking it up high in the air. If you take it up high in the air, apparently then you see more of the drop, but if you take it down on the ground, you don't see it. And the only way that they usually trying to differentiate is they'll put like a midpoint. So somewhere between where you're observing and where you're at, they'll have like a little kind of globe like sitting up, and then based on where that globe's at, you can actually see, for example, like the ship, it would rise up to like where that globe would be at, and then it would start rising back down, but then it could like rise back up again. You would actually see this dip, but it seems like this is the whole crux, is this atmospheric refraction, and whether or not you believe in it or not.
Are you familiar with Noah Sherrill? I'm talking about, I think I'm saying that right. You ever heard of that guy? He does
I don't think so. Noah
like,
Sherrill?
Yeah, he did like a 3-hour like flat Earth like debunking video. And of the flat Earth videos and the flat Earth debunking videos, they're like my favorite. He's just really he looks at different people's videos and like presentations on arguing on behalf of flat Earth, and then he disseminates it, and he does a really good job, and he's got a sense of humor too. I like.
Well, I'm about again like electric Earth or flat Earth or whatever. I think like the main thing is this idea that the universe itself isn't the way we're being told it is, or like the world even is not being told to be accurate. We've got missing satellite sections of islands and places that the CIA or whatever are hiding, and I think that makes it interesting enough for people to look into it. But more the idea of space, right? Without it, we start to, I mean, it's interesting talking about aliens, but also it could be impactful in the same way that AI was hypothetical recently, and now everyone is interacting with AI very quickly. We could be interacting, and this is something that Andy Rouse has talked about on Deep Share podcast a lot, that Christians and alien invasionists, like they have this perfect match for like a Project Bluebeam. People can be so ready for some superhuman or ultrahuman kind of life to civilization to make contact with. I think we're about to see something, even if it's just faked, right? Like that's the kind of thing that we're likely to see. Sorry, I think Thomas, you were about to pull something
Oh
up.
yes, here I was posting a link to it, but I found the thing that I was talking about, and this is recent, so this
Bedford
might be like
experiment,
old news to everybody. But what was blowing my mind is that this Bedford level experiment is used by both sides, like people that are pro flat Earth and people that are anti flat Earth. Both use this experiment to like prove their theory, and the only difference,
similarly, like the Michelson-Morley experiment, right? Like, so you've got both the idea of vaporous reality and that we're hanging like bats upside down from the surface of a globe in an inverse vacuum, where these are basically inverted balloons, and there's vacuumous space right outside. And it's an interesting idea also in and of itself, but that's just as weird, understanding what we understand about physics. And Michelson-Morley experiment was to propose, like they used to have on the periodic table, I think the 18th element was ether, right? Like originally. And then they removed it in like 1915 or something like that because of the Michelson-Morley experiment, where they said they were pretty sure that there wasn't ether. And now we've got pretty good evidence that there is, from the Michelson-Morley experiment, errors that were made that were not accounting for, everything from what we now refer to as dark matter and everything else. But even people are saying dark matter is too much of a quantum meta woo concept, and that we really need to get something that's more concrete. And the answer
it's kind of a cop out.
The answer is ether, like but it's from this, and the proof of it is the same experiment that was observed or misunderstood, right? And basically there are no failed well, if you run an experiment as an experiment should be run, there are no failed experiments. You have incorrect hypotheses, but if you found out you were wrong, you still succeeded at the experiment, right? So in that logic, the Michelson-Morley experiment, it's a great experiment, and the same thing with the Bedford experiment. There's things you can still look into from that. We, for instance, have accounted for the idea that the Earth, if people are saying the world isn't flat and it's a globe, then they're saying it's not completely a globe. You know, like it's pear-shaped. It's wider at the.
Well, that is the commonly like current understanding, right? Is that it is
but
a
it's
little
current.
bit.
It's currently understood that way because of things like the Bedford experiment, right? Because they're like, okay, obviously it's not enough also just to say that refraction is causing this, because the reason the Bedford experiment was super practical was because we were doing it on water. So you could, but there's a refraction of water. They've done the same experiment in the desert, right? There are super flat parts of the desert that they've done an experiment for. And they've also done this with lasers, and lasers don't experience the same kind of, and also there's computer refraction, counting algorithms. So, I mean, Google right now is using super high up direct line laser data transmission in their Lumen, what's it called? Their balloon program, right? They have like a balloon program. It's like their Loon project, right? So their Loon balloons have lasers, and then they have cameras, and they are able to receive direct from each other. So that also tells you, a bit about like refraction, right? Like if that can work, at a certain height.
There's engineers at Google that know unequivocally the shape of the Earth.
Like, that would be the thing to presume at a certain level, but also you don't need to have people know everything, because it's like pilots every day are using polar projection maps so they don't have to calculate curves, right? And when you're looking at your map, they're showing you this, compass curve that's drawn because you're flying over this curve, but that wouldn't be necessary if you just look at a polar projection either, right? So there's reasons why it makes sense to also just to frame your perspective differently. Like Robert Anton Wilson would talk about like psychological borders, and the idea that the world is round, I think, brings us together in a sense, but also that if the world was, looking from a polar projection, it makes the South seem further and more distant and isolated and something that we can't reach, right?
It's one of the worst things in the world is arguing whether or not the Earth is flat or round.
Is it?
Really is one of the worst.
Fascinating though, man.
No. It's multifaceted. I'll say on one level, I think it's good for people to know why we know the things we know, to come to your own understanding and to be critical to get to that place where you're like, okay, I have a sense of it because I've gone through that. But at the same time, I kind of feel like people that it's talk about something that will compartmentalize the masses, something so basic. It's like gender stuff where it's like there's these things that we're just like, yeah, we all agree on this, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, no, actually we don't. And then you start to get into like 2 + 2 = 5 territory, and then you're like, well, maybe it does in a certain way, And so it's tricky.
Quantum, are we talking quantum computing? Because maybe 2 + 2 does equal 5, and those kind of. But and there's a really easy way around this, I think, and that's just that if they open up Antarctic cruises, if you could actually go to Antarctica and take your drone and just fly it as far as you want over that Arctic wall, that would solve a large portion of a lot of that. I mean, some people will never budge and they'll always assume something, right? But that's a really interesting aspect of this, is that if you did want to go and find out for yourself, you would be stopped by, I don't know who, you know what I mean? Maybe just the raw elements of nature. But
hopefully by the alien human hybrids from like the Toronto University that we were reading about earlier,
Well, we're told something in physics about and astronomy about how the way that a galaxy appears as a disk, and that those arms of the disk actually spread out, and that supposedly, despite appearances, there's supposed to be more stars in the galactic halo of the central disk than there are like in the middle part that we perceive, because they're just so spread out. And so even like a galaxy, they'll tell us is spherical ultimately, but we don't perceive it that way. So it's kind of like the opposite of the Earth. They're like, well, we perceive it as flat, but actually it's spherical. And then you look at a galaxy and you're like, well, we perceive it as but it's kind of weird.
Dude, I was just looking at this article of Beverly Hills middle school students using IA, I guess this is from a Spanish translation, AI, to create nude images of their peers. So this is happening in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills.
I wouldn't
Wait
care.
until they
When I was in
find out
school,
what
I wouldn't
someone
care
can do
about
with
the
a pencil. I remember people drawing pictures of other ones in the class. And then this is one of my other favorite meticulous debates that annoys people too. But like, at what point, let's say I've got a pencil right now, right? And I draw David completely nude doing something. Yeah, exactly. I'm doing this. And I do that with a pencil, right? The only argument I've heard so far is that, yeah, well, the computer can do it better and faster. Well, if that is that the only metric though? So does that mean if I went and I spent an hour every day and all I did was just drew Taylor Swift memes, and at the end of a month, I've got something that is photorealistic and it looks absolutely real, and you can post it online, it's a color and everything.
Yeah,
Is
then
that
you're
as
then you're
bad
Nick
and
then
illegal
you're
as the AI doing it?
that's worse. Then you're Nicolas Cage in Con Air when you punch that guy, but your hands are essentially weapons. You know what I mean? Like you basically turned
Right,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
got
just
to
a little
register
different.
them.
You got to register your hands. Yeah, exactly. That's that's what's going to
But
happen.
there's
Capable
clearly
of
a line somewhere between me drawing a stick figure and saying that's Taylor Swift and just drawing Bob's, and then all the way over here on AI where it's like ultra realistic. So is it a quantitative thing or a qualitative thing? Is it because it looks so real, or is it because it can be done so quickly by someone that hasn't paid their dues in order to like achieve that level of skill? And
I
that's
think
it's
looking
like the
real is
ultimate
a big part
gatekeeping.
of it. Looking so real is part of it, but being overwhelmed by something, like if you were like DDoS attacked with fake porn, you know, at your door or in school, I think that's a whole other thing. But the idea of like realistic stuff, like earlier, you know, it's not going to be a story people worry about yet. But I think like the headset, if people can steal your identity and call people looking like you, like very quickly, that's going to become a reality. And so people believing in deep fakes, it matters more if you're not infamous. Like if you've not given up your right to privacy and become like a politician or a celebrity or something like that. If like you're a person in the private world, I mean, it'll be a lot easier to trick somebody, like call grandma with your voice and say, I need you to bail me out of jail. Like that's already happening. People are saying that they're getting calls from fake voices that sound like their relatives, you know?
But doesn't this just mean we should stop trusting like a voice or a face, and not that we should limit the technology around it? Because all that happened, I mean, I'm true like a red-blooded American when it comes to this, right? Because you take away everyone's guns, then only criminals have guns. So if you take away everyone's AI, then only the criminals are going to have AI, that and the corporations, right? It's the exact same thing as firearms in this country. And if you look at every other country, it's the exact same argument that they use to take away their guns. Like I not a lot of people are connecting this, but I really do feel like
no, I got you.
AI and
weapons
guns are like hand in hand.
that's what I've been saying.
The pen is mightier than the sword, and a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Right.
Just saying.
I don't know. I think we're about to get to a point where data isn't trusted, like you said, but when it's not trusted, then you know how far are we going to go? Because
all the way, dude. Like my favorite thing to bring up is that Rene Descartes said that he didn't believe his own eyes because he knew, and I'm paraphrasing this, obviously, he didn't speak American like I do, but that everything that he saw with his eyes was really just his optic nerves vibrating. And if that's all it took was just to someone vibrate your optic nerves and you can make to see anything, that even if he sat down and saw the sun rise and the sun set, that's not proof of anything. So he was like, I have to stop looking outward and I have to start looking inward. So he started deriving what he thought reality was based on just the logic inside of him, because of the same kind of fractal infinite nature we talk about. He assumed that whatever's inside, whatever logic I can come up with internally, has to have some sort of a truth in like this external world, as opposed to like look at the external and apply it to the internal. So if the question is how far do we bring it, I say we bring it all the way to Rene Descartes and just saying like, you're just jiggling my optic nerves. Like I don't trust anything going on.
Yeah, but then we go like then we're Blade Runner, you know, because like then it gets to that point where like you can't trust your own memories. Your own memories are stacks. Every moment you have exactly
Ex Machina. You're gonna start cutting yourself open to see if you can find hardware in there.
Yeah, I think it's good on one level because I like the idea of ego death and thinking that every moment is fresh and that the whole past behind it was all stacked for just this existence, this symmetry. but I also think that could probably drive most people insane, right? Like,
well, it's Apollonianism, like taken to the extreme. So something, because we have society, you know, we establish an order of things, and then that's like how we like function and whatnot. And so it's just basically what we're describing is like total helter skelter, which means confusion. So it's just like mass freaking confusion, because if you're not going to be able to trust anything, you know, but we're already there. So that's already happening. So this isn't like a question of like if in the future, like we're literally having videos emerge of people saying things and us people reacting in mass to what they're seeing, and they're not even saying it. I mean, it's considered one of the greatest sins in Judaism, worse than like murder in a certain way, is if you destroy somebody's reputation. If you destroy somebody's reputation, that extends beyond your lifetime. You know, it's like what with Nietzsche, when they said it turned out as like a somebody who had something against Nietzsche. I think it was like a tabloid thing or something of like how he died. So like it's like he was even taught in universities for years that he died of syphilis that he got from a prostitute, and it was like, I guess that doesn't actually check out at this point, but it's like it doesn't change the fact that people have said that for so many years. You know, it's like, yeah.
Does the inverse of that work too? Like if you venerate someone that doesn't deserve it, is that just as much of a sin as ruining someone's reputation?
Putting the Ferengi back on, yeah.
It should be, if not.
What about Apollo? You kept saying it's so Apollonian. Why is it so Apollonian? Like, what's the metaphor there?
Well, the idea is Apollo as the destroyer. And so like it's the basis of Nietzsche's The Birth of Tragedy, where he argues about the history of Dionysian theater becoming Apollonian theater, where it had this musical element that got removed, that basically the satyr chorus would actually perform in between the audience and the stage with tragedies that they were very familiar with. And so that apparently allowed a certain malleability in the minds of the spectators who did not see themselves as spectator. Like the idea of a spectator is like unknown to the Greeks at that time. And so Apollo is structure. It's like if you sculpture as opposed to music or something, it's like it's a very stable thing. So they looked at laws as Apollonian, and restriction. And so you put restrictions on people that you can function better to a degree if you're trying to build something or accomplish something, you know, because it's organized. But the idea of why Apollo's the destroyer is because if you continue on with that indefinitely, then, you know, at a certain point it can destroy a whole empire just by so much restriction. You know, if all you do is make more laws, then you're giving back, or you're, you know, allowing, then it becomes this destructive force. So well, I guess I could see it that way.
I was talking about this earlier today, but this is kind of like the Hegelian dialectic. If you were to take that dynamic you were just explaining and turn it into like a formula and gave it to like the Fabian Society or somebody, that's kind of Hegelian dialectic, is knowing that after a certain while, a certain way of life, or like the rules that you impose or some culture, just it existing over time breeds people that don't like it. And once enough people build up, then they form like a counterculture. And then once that gets to a critical mass, then that counterculture pushes against that original culture, and a new culture emerges. And then the whole process
exactly
repeating over and over again.
Yeah, you're kind of describing The Birth of Tragedy, because he's talking about folk music. And so what at his time, so it'd be like the equivalent of rock at Nietzsche's time, you know, because it's counterculture music, you know. And so he felt that was a continuation of the Dionysian throng. And so people, what is really the art of the people, you know, as opposed to coming from on high with the intent to like manipulate or direct the people, you know, like it's about freedom. And so Dionysus is about freedom, Apollo is about order. And so they oscillate and they coexist. And so you can kind of go through the whole of human history and look at how the times where we've had like Dionysian movements, they've been accompanied or followed by Apollonian movements. It's a pendulum, right? So like we kind of, as we move through time, we keep going back and forth between these two archetypes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a third. So I was thinking about that actually, because, you know, isn't it weird? Like, so one of my Santa Cruzian Agenda 21 pilot program town thoughts is like, we need goddess energy, you know, like goddess energy is the answer. I don't know why, but that's like, maybe it's Gaianism, maybe it's like my kindergarten teachers, but that's programmed in me. But I've been thinking about it, and there's a lot of people like who go after goddess energy who go insane. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like insanity is tied with goddess energy, and that wisdom, Sophia, Discordia, Eris, chaos thing seems like they're the same thing. They're the two sides of the same coin, chaos and wisdom, right? And so you've got like you've got Apollo, and you have Hestia, because Hestia is sort of the goddess of before Dionysus. Hestia was up on the throne, right? And Dionysus takes her spot. So she's in charge of that throne seat, and then when she's removed, she ends up with the fireplace, like the hearth. And so Vestal virgins and things are associated with Hestia, but she loses her spot on Mount Olympus, and has like that seat's filled by Dionysus, by Bacchus, right? And there's two kinds of Bacchus. There's like the young and the old. There's the old Bacchus, but there's the young Bacchus first. So I think that connects with that idea that there's a point where Bacchus basically becomes like Apollo again, but it leads back to, you know, Hestia or whatever. There's like this wisdom chaos kind of thing.
Is he associated with Diana? What's it? Because you have Diana and Artemis, right? Because if you're talking about a third there, and you're talking about like a feminine archetype, that's where I would go. Is Diana?
Yeah, I mean, she's divine and heavenly, and I think if you break her up into aspects, you might get chaos and order or something like that as like two dynamics of her. But like, it's really the idea. Yeah, Diana is like femininity, but I mean, considering also like Discordia because of the golden apple, right? Like, what's up with the apple of discord, right? Like the fruit of knowledge kind of a thing. Like, what do you think of the apple?
That doesn't grow on an oak tree. But like, you know, the whole thing with the princess being associated with Dionysus, who the stranger would kill the king and marry, that's like that she is like, her and her offspring are like the continuation of Dionysus, which I find interesting because that partner has to be a total outsider. He has to be from somebody outside the kingdom, which is so distinct from the way we treat royalty now, where they like, I just saw a video of Jacob Rothschild, because there's a lot going on right, you know, with that right now because of his death. But it's like, I just saw a video of him just talking about like how we keep it in the family and joking about it, and everybody's laughing. And he's like, you know, because of wealth and power. But it's just, he's so he's one of those guys, you know, like Klaus Schwab, who he'll be talking, and he doesn't even, he's in such his own world, he doesn't even know like nice, he doesn't even know like what it is, what it sounds like to regular people, you know, like he has no exposure to regular people. So it's just, yeah, it's so
what's it going to take for us to like generate this in Civitai? Because I've seen other models you can just run in Civitai.
Yeah, you just look right there on the top, it says create with that blue button.
Remix?
At the very...
Oh, create right here.
Yep.
Oh, great. And so then right here I could type in, oh, this is Mary Kate Olsen eating a glizzy. Let's make it more like your one.
Oh, there should be an option on there to like generate based on that prompt. But yeah, you can just copy and paste all that in there.
Who's someone you want as Ronald McDonald clown at Disneyland, no, holding balloon animal at Disneyland. Okay, we'll just try that really quickly, and I'll wait to see if that turns out okay, because you never know what could happen with the AI internet.
But Jacob Rothschild lives on. I've trained I trained a model on him. It spent like, it was a big one. It was if you saw that, it was like
I found out that Jacob Rothschild was dead that way. So I saw your post, nice. And it said Jacob Rothschild
not anymore. Dead, I brought him back.
But
his AI he's a marvel in the tech.
He is now.
Yeah. That's what he always wanted.
You're welcome, world. I didn't let him get away that easy.
You know, he really does look like the Man Who Laughs, like the old silent film Man Who Laughs, more than the current Jokers, you know, whether Heath Ledger or whoever. You know what I mean? Like what you just did, that you were familiar with the silent film The Man Who Laughs?
No, The Man Who Laughs. The Man Who Laughs.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember that one.
Okay.
Man Who Laughs.
Yeah. So this
great.
is this is the inspiration for the Joker as he exists, and you know Alan Moore speaks to this. Like the Killing Joke used the character from The Man Who Laughs for this whole thing. Yeah, if you get to this guy cannot not smile. You know, this is creepy as
relation to
hell.
Regis Philbin, or is it just the same name?
You'll get there if you flip
They're
through it
all
like
the
this.
same Philbins.
Yeah.
How far we go?
I
Chaos.
don't know, man. Yeah,
This looks great. I've never seen this one.
Oh, there, yeah, that guy, yeah, but he has this smile that sometimes just goes really out of control. You know, I mean, it's always on, but yeah,
that's pretty brutal. Hold on, one more time. I close my eyes to dream, seeking secret in the silent stream, drawing me closer to a latter day in time. We're gonna take over. We're gonna take over the '80s ladder wave. It's gonna be huge. I feel like these aliens, though, man. Like, I'm all right with flat Earth unless I can't have aliens. I gotta keep my aliens.
Aren't all of these characters, except for the blonde one, in the movie Communion? Aren't they all? Except for actually, there's
validate it in a sense.
Yeah, there's two that aren't actually.
That blonde one's in Communion too. She's actually in the scene when they're like all talking about abductions. Probably she's like the Hyperborean girl who was, you know, part of the, you know, Communion. What's that called? Like where they have like an alien abduction, like anonymous group.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. Oh man, man from Earth. No,
nothing's gonna help. Yeah, no, I mean, there's like, look, there's that guy right there. There he is.
Yeah,
he's just like, yeah, we know.
Yeah,
so I mean, like, I feel like that validates something, right? And look at that. It's like literally the South Park gray is like perfect. So on one level, though, doesn't it just seem like these are the masks that the elite use when they drug you in the night? Or do you think
absolutely, I believe on that.
Yeah, I mean, they must have like their favorite masks, their favorite characters they play, right?
Yeah, he goes to have him take the mask off, and then there's a reptilian underneath. In fact, I bet if you typed in Communion Reptilian, you walk in, you might get it. But yeah, that's one of the creepier scenes in the movie, I think, is when he's like, "Who are you really?" And then he takes the mask off, and it's this reptile. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
That's better than a reptile because he's like made out of like slime, you know.
But then it's Christopher Walken just being like, "No, that's not it. I don't believe it." Like in other words, he's being shown things in a vision, but then he's like hallucinating, even though apparently he saw something quote unquote real, you know.
Corey Anderson wants to see Eddie Murphy in The Passion of Christ, which I would like to see, especially if it's like the Coming to America version of Passion of the Christ, Eddie Murphy. I think that.
Oh, dude, you know that they're coming out with a sequel here really soon. I think really soon. The Mel Gibson sequel to The Passion of the Christ.
Oh, okay. Because I was like,
and it's like it's Christ, it's Jesus in hell, or he's
gonna do the harrowing of hell.
He goes there, yeah.
But see that I think this is where we're gonna start learning new things. We're gonna learn that, like, for example, it might not be the actors in the movie that really make it. Maybe it's all about the director, or maybe it's all about the cinematographer, because that's where it's going to get more interesting. Is that, well, I want to see Passion of the Christ, but I want to see the Tyler Perry version of Passion of the Christ, or I want to see Mel Gibson direct Rat Race, or like one of these other weird things where it's more than just like the aesthetics. It'll be everything, because they might have cast somebody differently.
Bruh, I can't wait to see this. He's literally going to do the harrowing of hell as like out of the Gospel of Nicodemus, which is not even in the Catholic Bible. That's pretty much as Gnostic as you can get. So harrowing hell in which Jesus descended into hell and tore down its walls, declaring the war on the devil and his kingdom. So this is like he had to be born in order to do this. Like their whole thing was that he came so he could declare war on the devil, and it hadn't been declared yet.
Yeah, I mean, the original Passion of the Christ didn't have anything supernatural to it. You're just watching this guy get the shit beat out of him. Like
wasn't
the whole
no,
movie. It's like a torture flick.
I disagree. There was definitely like the devil, and there's some weird ghostly evil thing a couple times, right? And they're like whispers and stuff. I think he sees the devil, right? In the Passion of the Christ. Doesn't that happen, or am I crazy?
I think I kind of maybe while I was watching, I was interpreting that he was like hallucinating from pain or whatever, but
bro,
felt like it was like
it was this super Aryan devil thing happened here, right? So yeah, there's at some point he talks to this like beautiful angel.
Oh, you're right. It's Lilith.
Yeah,
which is talk to Lilith, which is also associated with an owl, by the way.
Or
Lilith is associated
definitely with this idea of the beautiful angel being like goddess femininity, like the heavenly mother, and the sort of like divorce between the father and the mother, which is super Gnostic, the Jabalon kind of concept.
You know what? I was really impacted by an interview I did on Always Record many years ago with this guy. I can't remember the name. I think his book may have been The Venus Blueprint, but he was talking about, like, for lack of a better word, goddess religion. That it was like there was like a feminine focused religion.
This guy
that is that him? Maybe
Jacques Fresco.
I didn't see his face. I just interviewed him, but
yeah, he did the Venus Project. That's cool.
Venus Blueprint, not the Venus Project. No, your Venus Project was a thing associated with Zeitgeist, right? Or is like the sequel is Zeitgeist?
My bad. Yeah. Richard Merrick. Okay,
that sounds right. Yeah, but this guy's talking about certain symbols: the rose and the two pillars and the pentagram for Venus, because of Venus's path through the sky, how it intersects with its own pathway and then draws out a pentagram if you're to lay it out two-dimensionally. But so he has this whole argument that this religion was basically just destroyed. So like even like when we talk about like the witch hunts of Salem and elsewhere, that's like doesn't even come close to a religion that was wiped out, that there's remnants of, there's like ancient temples of. So it's kind of similar in a way to your Tartarian stuff, but it's well,
apparently Graham Hancock wrote like a foreword or a review here, so he must be down. Ancient aliens.
It was a very enjoyable communication from him around this trip, and I really can entertain it. It sounds so plausible. It sounds so true. But yeah, isn't it weird the way that our associations with the Greeks often switch from their associations of what was before? The most direct for me or one of the more interesting ones is like Saturn, because like Saturn is like so masculine. He's devouring his children from, Kronos, the Greek version of Saturn, the Roman version. And it's like, Saturn was associated with the feminine prior to that, and so like Saturn and Shekhinah are related, not just related. I mean, that's the association. And so I find it really interesting when things get flipped around like that over time, because it's like, the mentality of the people who are kind of like, conquering and doing their thing kind of gets like, it takes the symbolism of what was before and just kind of twists it around as it sees appropriate,
What I think is fascinating here, though, let's say that like Saturn used to be feminine and then he becomes masculine over time, right? But there had to be in my mind there had to be like a day that somebody woke up and it was like, okay, now he's a dude, right? And like he was like a girl the day before. Like even if it's a sliding scale, there was one day when it was at 49.9%.
You don't think it was like a Futanari thing where it like got more and more androgynous until eventually someone was like, no, it's a dude. Like they just forgot.
Well, right, but I guess like someone still had to say at some point, it's like it's no longer androgynous, and now, you know what I mean? Like that moment had to exist. Even
I think maybe there was a moment where someone said, "We'll kill you if you keep believing what you used to believe." But I think you could also have convergences for a while until that happens.
I agree with Thomas on this, because I feel like there's examples where you can like, who was it that did Caesar's Messiah? That book. If you type it in, I can't remember his name, but Joseph something. but like, you know, he would argue that like Josephus Flavius was most likely the writer of the gospel, not just him, but like a panel of Romans. So he was a Jew, made into he was adopted into the Flavian court. So he kind of was like, for all intents and purposes, made into a Caesar. He's like brought into the family. It's the only example of that happening during the 100-Year War. And he's responsible, Joseph Atwell, there you go. You know, Josephus is responsible for recording the history of what was happening in lower class Judea, with War of the Jews and Antiquity of the Jews. And those are like the only surviving texts other than the gospel for the most part. Like there's some scrolls and stuff, but that were like used for kindling and shit, hanging from found hanging from ropes in a cave and stuff like that, like the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever. But we don't have much to go on the history. And so there's this idea that if he took what was a religion of a people and he kind of like fulfilled it for them, so he's like, you don't have anything to continue to wait for, you know, like your Messiah has come. So there's that argument that it was done in that way. But there's also the argument that where I go kind of beyond Joseph Atwell is that I think it's plausible that that Josephus Flavius was, you know, smart enough to actually like communicate something through the text that kind of like showed it, for revealed what it was, but we would have gotten there already if it wasn't for preachers who tell people what the text says instead of most people being able to read it because people were illiterate for so long. So like there's the residue of that, or the momentum of that, or whatever. But no, I don't know. I think that when you're describing that, Thomas, that could just happen in a day, like somebody says this and now that's that. I think that's kind of true in a way for writing, like when something's recorded in such a way that it's like into the future, like that when it was written down more than like when it was said, obviously, you know. So it's like somebody decided that, and then that's that if they're in a high enough position for that to be the how it gets.
And
or like
the
again with
might
the
not
idea
even be known.
Well, it could be like the star thing, you know, because we're talking about this idea that I think space-time, or like the way the CERN experiment works, like you probably like control certain moments in time that exist for millennia or something, depending on how long that star exists for. But if these things are shifting and changing, and they're talking about, you know, the age of Aquarius or the age of Taurus, it could be that the Saturn of that period is inverted in the same way that the poles are inverted, and that these are connected concepts. So, you know, maybe Saturn is a man, or is masculine now in terms of polarity, but was because the planet had all of the other, well, not the planet, I'm sorry, the god Saturn has all of the other god, like children god, in its uterus, right, in its stomach.
Yeah,
so
I'm kind of a weird conspiracy theorist because I don't do the thing all the time. Maybe I used to more, but I'm like, I don't see everything as nefarious necessarily. Like every time I'm like uncover, like just because something's esoteric, it doesn't know. Because I could even see aspects of MK Ultra that I'm like, that's not necessarily nefarious. Like, you know,
I need a freeze frame of that guy's face just for like any time. You know, he's like an anytime face kind of guy now. I love it. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, you'd like this movie, Andreas. It's right up your alley. I'm super surprised you haven't used it for visuals and things, or like portions of it. There's specific portions that are just really crazy because of that guy's freaking smile. I assume
it's public domain at this point, right?
Oh, it's totally public domain. Yeah, it's like 1928 or something like that.
Good times, man.
Yeah, there's also The Bat. If you can watch the silent film The Bat, because that's like, it has the bat signal shows up, but it turns out it's a moth on the light. It's like he's got like it looks exactly like the bat signal. It's like moving across the room, and it's the guy dressed as yeah, there you go, there it is. Yeah, jump towards the end of this. But yeah, so he's like a thief and a killer, and so Batman's like totally like a bad guy. If you get to the very end of it, you'll see him. He'll be in his outfit. Yeah, he shows up. But yeah, he's got like bat ears on, you know. But yeah, anyway, I said very end.
Yeah, went past
take the mask off. They'll they'll unmask him. Yeah.
Wow.
They're like, who is this Batman?
Oh, that looks great. This is the original Batman movie. That's amazing.
It was groundskeeper Jimmy all along.
Oh man, that looks awesome. That looks like
I don't know if it gets older than this for inspirations for Batman.
That's pretty sweet. So wait, this is before the Batman comic, or no? Is it before the comic?
I don't know. I'd have to check. I can't remember. I just know that it's
Batman
before but
comic,
there was a black and white Batman show.
1939. Wow.
Well, there's prior to Adam West, because there's like
This is
before
before
Adam
the
West. There's a
comic book, though.
yeah. There you go.
This is like what?
This is
13 years.
1926.
13 years before the comic book came out. That's crazy. A Batman.
Yeah.
A Batman. There was a Batman.
I'm surprised I never heard anyone talk about this.
That's crazy.
Because then also it's really interesting too, because you have in the Christopher Nolan versions of Batman now, like especially in the second one with Heath Ledger and the third one too, you really start questioning like who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. Like it's in the design of the thing that you're just like, wait a minute, are we on the like what Batman represents defending Gotham and for what Gotham is, and like you're like, dude, maybe he's wrong, dude. Like both of those movies kind of like do that. They play on that, and so I think it's interesting that the earliest Batman thing that I can find is like Batman's bad, you know. Batman's he's a bad guy.
I don't know if you've seen this, but in like there's a new Suicide Squad game that came out, and in like in the game community, in the comic community, it caused a little bit of a rift because I think Harley Quinn and the rest of the Suicide Squad, they actually take out Batman, and it like completely changes canon a little bit. But they make this like her argument, at least on behalf of this her group, is that Batman is the bad guy, or that if nothing else, it's at least nebulous enough where they all live in this like checkerboard reality, right? And that
in this future where Batman's a rich white male, what did you expect to happen? You know?
Well, I mean, you're saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah. Pretty clear. Also in Valencia, Spain, since like the 13th century or probably earlier, maybe even, they've had this bat on their crown.
And the Bacardi family too.
They tried to sue them, the football soccer team, and they were like, well, we've had this logo for like 7 or 8 or 12 centuries longer than you've had.
What, just a bat with its wings spread out? Jesus Christ. People are crazy.
It's great. Well, their symbol, the new Batman movie, like they changed their logo to look more like the Valencia bat. And so that's why they're like, hey, your logo looks like ours. Like, yeah, because you changed yours. You changed your bat.
Okay.
It's terrible. Yeah. Well, all right. Let me pull up where's my banner thing? There you go. Oh, I got stuck. Make sure you take a bite of this golden apple. And please, Thomas, present a golden apple of Discord in some sort of Paranoid American like kit. I'd love it if it was like, you know how like you had the cassette tapes, like Free Willy came with that little clay Native American necklace pendant. I'd love like a golden apple that came with something. That'd be
and really a little hemp bracelet. I'm gonna bring those back.
Yeah, like it could be a hemp string that has the golden apple on it, you know, or something like that.
The big one now is paranoidsummer.com. If you scroll down a little bit, there was a link to it. But this is going to be all the other projects have enough signups that they're all going to be dropping this year. The very first one's going to be Chosen One. That's going to come out next month. And then right after that, I'm deciding it's going to be NASA or the other one. But this is the one that needs the most help right now. And it's going to be 4 completely different comics. There's one, Black Mass Pizza, which is co-written by Doc Wyatt, who works on Ninjago. He was producer of Napoleon Dynamite. He's worked at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, My Little Ponies. Like the dude has got a crazy record, and for some crazy reason, he decided to work with me on this Black Mass Pizza comic. That's coming out. Lee's Demons, I made with Dream Fury Comics, who's Eisner Award nominated, and this is about Lee Harvey Oswald saving the life of JFK using voodoo. I got Rising from the Ashes, which has got Danunaki Dan and Homie Romy in it, and then a comic called Mold, which I've talked about a few times here, about the planet being run by a global mycelium network that's at odds with reptilians from outer space. But it revolves around a tortured lunch lady that gets revenge on middle schoolers.
Hey, Thomas, how many comics have you produced?
A little over 50 now.
Wow.
Dude, I want all of them. I want the 50 comic collection of all this stuff.
Well, that will be one of the things.
The Taylor Swift box with all of it.
At the paranoidsummer.com, where you can find that release of the 4, there will be some sort of like a huge package release of like get everything that Paranoid American has ever created. Because this right here, this release will kind of be like the moment that everything that I've got has finally been released. That's why I'm doing these 4 at a time. because I don't want to wait another like 2 years to slowly leak all these out one by one. I want to just get them all out there.
You know what's terrible? I never do this, because this isn't something I would do. But if you go to say you want to download an album by an artist, and one was to go look for a torrent of it, and you'll find that sometimes you can't find that specific album. One could find that, and you just need to download their whole discography if you want that album.
You can select specific folders on the torrent. You don't have to download every
you can, but while you're at it, because that's where it led you. I'm just saying, like,
go super.
You don't know what else you're missing.
And so I've never done that. But I could definitely I have that vibe when it comes to your comics. I got one of your comics and it's so good, and I'm just like, I want a stack of these so I can just lounge here and just go through them all.
I feel like I'd be the coolest kid if someone come over and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, every comic book you have I've never heard of yet, and they're all the best comic books ever, and they'll just come on. I was like, just scatter them over your coffee table and just leave them there.
I mean, that's what we should be doing anyways. And these are all issue 1s, by the way. Like, these are all brand new series that have multiple issues behind them. Lee's Demons, for example, is going to have 6 to 8 issues behind it. All the artwork and the writing is already done. It's literally just about getting them printed. And Black Mass Pizza's got 3 issues. Mold's got 3 issues. Rising's got 2 issues. So these are all long-running series all launched at the same time. So these will be big.
Dude, I was just having this vision of myself in Antique Roadshow when I'm 93 and I'm presenting all of my Paranoid American comics. I can finally get that cruise because they're going to be collectible. All right. Well, then also make sure that you go to Kickstarter through paranoidsummer.com, and then really quickly just click notify on the launch. Doesn't cost you anything, and from there you'll be known when it's coming, but also you'll be able to pick up a big old pack of comics, and then go to Paranoid
asterisk. If it does cost a little something, I think you do lose a little bit of your soul every time you sign up for that.
That's true, if you have any left. But go to Paranoid America on x.com or Twitter, and you can check out, look at this, shutdown1.com. That's pretty sweet. And then the Pizzagate, Frazzle Drip. I mean, there's just all kinds of cool stuff happening. Listen to that music.
It's a good song. It really is. There has some merit to it.
Dude, like Jacob Rothschild will tell you, you want to get this album. You want to listen to Paranoid American. So Jeff, definitely go to paranoidamerican.com and also to the Twitter and X and subscribe. Also syncbook.com, where you can go on down to videos, click on Sync Flicks, and you can see all of David's new work. He's got hundreds of sync flicks that are just amazing, where he's put music and videos together. You can check out also MK Ultrasound 723. David Charles played on Twitter, because he's putting all the films up there right now. Like, check out Deadpool 1 and 2 paired with Eminem's album Kamikaze. Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious. I don't know why no one thought of it first besides David, but honestly, David was there to get there. This is great. Look at this, 2 at the same time. Deadpool 1 and 2, right? With the third thing, Eminem. It's going to change your life.
It's funny because I got a new Eminem sync. So if you just scroll down a little bit past this one, I've been fixated on this for a long time. I've been meaning to play with this, and the idea was, I wanted to play the Marshall Mathers LP with Fanatic for the reasons of so Devin Sawa, he's in the music video for Stan. So at the end of the sync film, actually, from Limp Bizkit.
Fred Durst made this movie. Everyone needs to watch it. That's all I have to say.
And so this is actually, I had something happen that was actually an accident, but it ended up being a very happy accident, because I found that the Marshall Mathers LP2 that came out in 2013 is actually for all intents and purposes the length of this movie. So from when he walks into the shop at the beginning to when the credits come on. And so it's just one round, no second round of Marshall Mathers LP2. But yeah, I started with Dido, and it's just that one song, Thank You, and then which happens to be the length up to when he enters the store. So it works really well. And if you the meaning here of that with Devin Sawa's character, that he is now the flip side. He's playing the part of Eminem now. And so, but he's like kind of both of them, and it's weird because like Eminem like literally like says that in the album in different ways. Like it's super trippy. But
wow,
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to watch this. This is gonna be really cool.
It's also crazy because like his son was autistic and he died a number of years ago, and it was the 10-year anniversary of his son's death. John Travolta did this this praise thing for Scientology, and it's just the whole thing is just loaded with weirdness, but he's like playing his son being a crazy fan basically. So that's pretty nuts.
Dude, I hadn't even thought about that, but that's another crazy point. The fact that he's approaching a autistic character from the perspective of a Scientologist. Man, dude, Fred Durst is a genius, honestly. I can't believe
totally.
it. Yeah. And yeah, make sure you guys go to Civitide, download the Paranoid American model for well, he's got a bunch of models you can download.
Did it ever generate anything?
No, it says queued. I don't know what I did wrong. I'll have to wait, and I'll show you guys next time on another exciting thing. But you could we'll get some Ghislaine Maxwell and some Jenna Malone pictures up there. That'll be pretty cool. Make sure you go to TargetNova.com, like and subscribe, and join the Discord, the Cartery Matrix, because they're pretty sweet. Amazingly large community. It's been growing. Wow, there are 100 or so people since last time I checked. Sweet, and be careful for Apollo will destroy you, and Eris will drive you mad. Cool. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.